Hello, and thanks for tuning in. Well, the day is really winding down and the evening's well underway, but I really wanted to present a drawing session for you and have you join with me. So I've selected a couple tangles that I haven't used in a while. They might be new or familiar to you. But as far as a composition, I don't really have anything planned. Admittedly, I did a quick sketch of an idea, but I haven't executed it yet. So we're going to discover together whether it's any good or not, okay? Hopefully it will be, and we'll have some fun drawing in the process. So let's get started. We're going to do some tile preparation to make the drawing a little easier. And what we'll do is we'll start with some corner dots, very commonly in Zentangle. Let's go about 3/4 of an inch in, approximately from each corner. We'll connect those lines, or those dots rather, with lines. And let's also do a parallel line outside of that, just so we can kind of see. We're going to actually, if my idea works, we're going to create a bit of a frame for this drawing, but we have to do it in stages so that we can layer the contents. I just want to have a bird's eye view as I'm going along where that frame may be. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. We may even add some sass to it with some less than straight lines. Hopefully you can see that okay. Now, let's grab our pen, our preferred pen, and let's start drawing. So we're going to start in that lower left-hand corner. And we're going to use a tangle called Zante, Z-A-N-T-E. I'll leave the information in the description box. But we're going to start down here outside of that frame and just draw a teardrop shape like that. And we're going to draw a few more of these. All right, so we've got 5 sort of clustered there in that lower left corner. And let's see, what do we want to do in here? I think I'm going to create some flux shapes here. Flux is like a leaf. If you're not familiar with it, it's one of the more popular tangles that Zentangle headquarters has presented, and they use it a lot. And I'm just kind of picking a point and then drawing outward from that point. It doesn't really have to make sense. We just want to fill that in as best we can. Now once we have that, I think I'm going to go ahead and ink that in here in the spots where the tangle is not. I just wanted something in the center there. And as I said when I began, I have a vague idea of what I want to do, but I haven't gone through the specifics. I often try to do ahead of time what I'll be presenting, just so it can be more smoothly explained as we go. But this one, you'll have to forgive me if I seem like I'm pausing and thinking about it, because I probably am. Alright, so we've got that strange little shape there, or the pattern inside, depending how you pieced yours together. But let's continue now with Zante. So once we have these teardrop shapes, we create a little line that comes across, and then that goes up like that, almost like we're creating petals of a little shape. And we'll do that with all of these here. I'll zoom in a little further just to make it easier to see. Just try to add a little curvature to those lines to make them a little more interesting, more look like a part of a leaf or a petal that's being bent around there. You can come from different sides with it. Doesn't have to always be from the same side or direction. Just like that. Sorry, I got off camera there. And now we want to do a little curved line or half moon shape and ink that in. And then 2 oral lines above that shape. And that's just the standard Zante pattern, at least standard as I'm creating it here in this case. So we'll finish each of these shapes by completing these same steps. One more to go here. Now there's one last step for this shape. We want to make some little fescue type lines that come out of these shapes, almost like a stamen on a plant, but it's exaggeratedly long. So we'll just make a nice wavy little line and add a little end to it there. We want these to come out from that center, sort of find their way around in that area. And let's do at least 2 or 3 of those lines in each of these little petals that we've created. You want to vary them, of course, so they don't look exactly the same in each case. Okay. I'm going to zoom back out there. I keep losing myself on the camera, so I apologize for that. Now what we want to do is draw our second tangle. This one was Zante. We're now going to draw Eofer. E-O-F-E-R is the name of this one. And I want to start one. It's like a plant that has a stalk, and we're going to kind of weave it around here. So we're going to go back. Let's create a little layering by going from underneath these plants here, or these patterns here. Like that. And then this has a nice big old petal. Just like that. So I drew it behind there. Once again, I'll try zooming in so I don't lose you, but I'm going to try not to go off camera here. And we draw another petal on the other side. And then we have 2 petals that are down here on the base of that. And now we'll draw some lines that indicate a shape to these petals, or these little pods or whatever they might be. And we want to continue our drawing going upward here. Our plant just sort of extends, kind of a slight bulb there toward the end. And we'll add these petals just as we did on the first one, with some subtle variations, of course, just in the nature of drawing. Just like that. And now let's continue up, just up above here. But I'm going to try to end it right about where those frame lines are. Like right on the frame. And then this will extend out beyond. It's like that. And I want to bring this next piece of the stem up above and curve it over, but stop before we get to that pencil line that we drew. Okay, so we want to stop right there. Now we need to draw part of our frame before we continue. So we're going to start in this upper left corner, and I'm going to add a little variety to my frame by making it have a little curved line in each of these corners. I'll do it down here as well in the lower right corner, but just don't get ahead of me. Just so we can piece this all together. We're going to draw this line now straight over until we hit our flower. And then we're going to do the same for our underneath line. We're going to bring that straight over, or underneath line. That didn't make a lot of sense, did it? The second line, or the other side of that frame. And we can also bring this straight down here. So we'll bring this down right until we come up against that plant. And same thing here with the inner line. If we want to, so we don't forget it, let's connect any open spaces like that. And also we can go right through there. And of course the other side would be behind, whoops, I'm sorry. The other side would be behind this here. So we're going to wait. But now we do need to draw this over. So about where that pencil line is showing us, we're going to bring this straight over here. Just like that. In any parts of that inner line that we can see, we want to do the same thing to. Just like that. So I'll zoom out again here. So you can see what we've done is we've connected it in those spots that are behind, or now that we can do that. And now we can go back to here, and we're going to bring a plant down and put one there as well. So we bring this right up. It's going to go behind this frame. Just like that. And now we're going to do those same petals that we've done on the other shapes. Okay, so by doing it in stages like that, we were able to create the over and under layering and make a little more visual interest to our pattern here. So now we want to continue. We're going to bring another one of these Eofer shapes. We're going to start it right about here, but we're going to come up behind this bottom piece of the frame. So we want to think here carefully about what we're going to do here. So I'm going to stop right about there so we can have a flower here. Then we're going to curve it up, maybe create another one here and off the page kind of thing. But we're going to bring this from behind the frame in this case. So we're going to follow up right about like that. And we get our first part there. So let's draw our petals. Now we're going to continue this stem up here. Let's put another one maybe right here, and it can be a little bit smaller. That's okay. Doesn't have to be the same size if we want to make it look a little different. We can create a little layering effect here as well. It's like that. And now let's bring this up. We're going to put maybe one last flower right about in there. And now we'll continue off here, just off the page. So now we get to finish our frame on this side. So we can now connect, using those pencil lines as a guide for us, we can connect our frame behind this flower, wherever that might have gone. And up top here as well. And there we go. So now we can add some additional details to our drawing. So on these stems, I like to add just a little line that sort of tracks very lightly, and not a complete line, meaning it doesn't have to be connected the entire way. Can be a broken line. All right, so I zoomed in so that we could see a little more detail on what I'm doing here to these stems. So just sort of a broken line that gives a sense of detail to this stem, and it's not just a flat piece again. I like to do it here on the side that might be receiving the shade or the shadow. So I'm going to assume that the light is sort of coming from this upper left corner, maybe kind of in front, and the shadows are going to come this way. We don't often worry about light sourcing in Zentangle, but I'm going to do it a little bit in this drawing just so we have consistent use of shadow, or at least as best as we can off the cuff here, consistent use of shadow to create an image that's more convincing to the eye that there's light hitting it and casting a shadow. So let's do that. So this, if the light's coming from this way, the shadow side would be on the right here. I don't want to make everyone feel confused or frustrated, but just think with me. And the reason this line is on the bottom is because the light's coming from this way, so the shadow would be on that side as well. Okay? Now, what I want to do here is add some hash marks or other line details to these flower patterns or these floral patterns so that we have some built-in shadow made with ink, if you will. This is, I like to draw this way, and it just makes it interesting even if we add shading to it or graphite to it. So if the light's coming from here, remember, it's going to cast a shadow on this right-hand side and maybe on the bottom sides of things. So what I'm going to do is create some hash marks that give that sense of shadow there. And we're going to enhance this with our graphite. This just, to me, makes it a little more interesting. I'm not doing much on the inside here because we're going to do something different there with the graphite. Just like that. It's not a perfect scenario here with our quick examination of light, but we can use this. Now to create, those are hash marks just like that. We can do cross hatching to make those a little bit darker. That's where you add a hash mark in an opposing direction across the lines you've already made, and that just darkens those up, as you see. It's a very ancient technique, not unique to Zentangle in any way, but we can use it to embellish our drawings, add interest to it, and help to enhance it a little bit. Okay, so we got that there. Now let's think about our shading on these. If the light's coming this way, we're probably going to have some shadows on this side of these leaves, and probably on this same bottom side here. It's like that. That light's sort of hitting it from that angle. So I'm going to create that same illusion, or attempt to, throughout these plants here and these leaves and petals. Just a very subtle bunch of lines here that already you can see, even if we didn't add graphite, it adds a sense of light and shadow, or highlights and dark areas to this drawing. I'm trying to introduce these concepts without getting overly technical. I mean, we could examine details for a long time. Sometimes artists labor over the proper casting of shadows in their drawings if they're going for hyper-realism. And there's things called reflective shadows, and light gets bounced off of one shadow and off the surface that something is on and bounced back into the shadow and creates a reflective shadow. So there's all sorts of details, but we're simplifying it, but trying to obey a general concept here. Just something fun to challenge yourself with, and if nothing else, you can sort of just copy along with what I'm doing and add these same sorts of enhancements to your own drawing without worrying about a sense of perfection or anything like that. Now I'm going to add the tiniest bit of hatching, excuse me, not hashing, hashtags. That's a whole different thing, isn't it? Just a little bit of hash marks or hatch marks here along that shadowed edge, or presumed shadow edge, of that stem, just to make it seem a little more dimensional. Now here our shadow would be on this side, and on the underneath, like that. Similar on this one. Just a very subtle sense of shape and light and dark contrasts. You can see already what that does to this drawing. It really almost brings it to life that way. But now let's do some things with the frame here. Let's, in fact, let me do this. We just used a wood type pattern in the last video that I presented with the radial design. So let's use some wood patterns in here, and then we'll add some cross hatching to give shadows to this frame as well. Now, I don't know what I want to do here in the corners. I think maybe, maybe just for some contrast, I'm going to add a little orb that will be dark in both of these corners. Just adds a little more contrast and variety to the page here. And now we're going to create some patterns of wood. So very lightly, without a perfect line, it can be a broken dashed line. We're going to add those little swirls and swoops that we did. If you saw it anyway, if this is your first time at my channel, of course that wouldn't make any sense to you. But we used this wood wannabe kind of look where we're just trying to create the idea of grain in this area so it looks like a wood grain of sorts. So it's very easy to do. You just have to go slowly and think about what you're doing so that you can kind of emulate pieces of wood if you've ever seen it before. If you haven't, next time you're around some raw wood, meaning unpainted wood, take a look at it and just notice how the grains swoop and swirl. And we're just creating it in all these areas where we can see behind those flowers, behind the vines and so on. We want to have some kind of a wood pattern here that shows through, just very lightly. So now that we did that, I mentioned I wanted to add some cross-hatching. So again, that shadow is coming from this way. So if this has some kind of a dimension to it, this piece of wood, maybe it's been shaved and shaped in such a way that the edges here are lower than this middle piece. So let's assume that for sake of our cross-hatching. So that means on this side, this half of the board, from here over, we want to add some subtle crosshatch marks, or just hatching. Because that's where the shadow is going to be. Now you might be thinking, well, why did we bother drawing all that wood grain and then we're just covering it up with these other lines? Well, the lines serve a different purpose. So we have to kind of go with it until we see what we're doing. And now this inside here, this half would also have some cross-hatching or some shadow. Again, I'm assuming the center piece of this wood frame, or the center of it, is higher than these edges, so that that's how a little bit of a shadow is getting cast there. And if it's coming this way, we're probably getting an outside shadow over here. And we're doing this very lightly because we will still use graphite, but this will just help enhance our eye's view of that graphite, and now of course the bottom half as well. Now purely, strictly speaking, doing this type of drawing lines with our pen is not something normally or formally taught in Zentangle, but it's something that I often do into my own drawings, and I've seen other artists that do similar things just because I think it looks good. It adds a unique appearance to the drawing even before we pull out the shading and the shadows. So it's certainly not required, but I wanted to present it and introduce you to this concept. All right, let's look around. What else could we add? Well, as things go over and under each other, we can add some hints of shadow there with our cross hatching. What about where it overlaps? A flower overlaps. Well, the light's coming this way, so it probably would cast a shadow on this side, wouldn't it? And maybe under here a bit. Sort of like that. Maybe a little bit over here if the light's going across that leaf there. Down here. Whoops, I'm off camera again. Boy, I'm doing terrible with that tonight. Maybe just a little bit down here. Of course, the frame might cast a shadow on that stem coming through there, and this leaf. And these leaves here certainly will, but they're going to be down below there. Well, looking around, I think that is about all we need to be concerned with at the moment. So we can go to our graphite. Or if you'd like, you can use colored pencils. Keep in mind where the darkest, deepest shadows are, black or a really heavy gray is going to be your best bet. It's just going to make everything pop. Now we could stop right here, but I want to add some of those darker shades of shadow. So I'm going to use a black, ivory black pencil and just do very fine lines around where the areas of the deepest black would be. This process, this is just to show you another way to shade drawings. This process can take a little bit longer. It's a little more involved because it requires a few steps. It's a little more detailed, but it produces really nice results as far as realism goes. So I'm just adding, right where we did those hash marks, I'm adding just some dark dark pencil marks from this black colored pencil. Now I could just use graphite and just use a very soft graphite pencil that would do the exact same thing. But the problem that I have sometimes with graphite, it's not a problem. Let me rephrase that. The thing that I sometimes don't like about the graphite is that it gets shiny when you look at it. It has a glint to it that you can see when you're under lighting, of course, but it just really adds a shiny glint to the drawing that sometimes I don't want. That it's sort of it's an effect that can be great, but it's not always what I want. So in this case, I thought it would be fun to try just with the colored pencils. But if you're using graphite, the same principle applies, meaning you're going to apply the deepest shadows where there's the least amount of light. At the edges of these objects and so on, where they touch the surface. So I'm adding that around the base of these little Zante shapes. I'm just adding a nice dark line there. And with a colored pencil, you can also control how dark it gets by the pressure you're using. So you can add more or less pressure and create different values that way as well. But I'm going to use a separate pencil for that other option. Now looking here, I have to think to myself, how do I want this? I'm going to assume that these petals have a little bit of a curve that can cast a shadow as well. So adding a little bit there. And if this seems too tedious to you, too involved, and you're just not wanting to do this for a drawing, you can certainly do standard graphite, as I said. And that will produce very, very acceptable results. I just wanted to show you a different option and one that doesn't create that glare on the drawing. Just adding it here in the deepest recesses of these shadows. Just a little bit of that black to bring out that edge to the dark area. It's very subtle at the moment, but perhaps the camera is picking up enough for you to see. All right. I think that's pretty good. So now I'm going to get one of my lighter gray pencils and just add a little bit where we put those hatch lines along the outside edge of this board, and in the areas maybe where the shadow is a little longer than that little dark line that I was just making with the black pencil. Just adding some little more interest to it here. So this is a shadow mark, but it's lighter. It's not like these areas are completely cut off from the light. There's just less light getting to it. Okay, and that's starting to come together a little more each time we add a little more detail. Now you could also add a little bit of this lighter gray or graphite in itself in these areas on the flowers where the hatching lines. Now I'm also going to blend a little bit here on these shapes to give it a better impression of a roundness. And a little volume to the shape there. Just I didn't want to use a black pen or a dark graphite because that would just make it look like I inked it in, and it wouldn't show any sort of variance in the shape or bends and twists and turns. Not everyone wants to spend this time with these details, but I find this some of the more fascinating parts of the drawing process. I think we've come to the end of this drawing, and this, when I started, I said this was unplanned. I wasn't exactly sure how it was going to end up, but here we go. We've gotten this far, so let's add our signature to it. our chop. Let's see, what's a good spot to hide that away? I think I'm going to tuck mine right down here. Just like that. And I think we're going to call that good. So thank you very much for joining with me. I look forward to seeing everyone again real soon back here in the Tangles and Tunes channel. Thank you, and have a great night. Bye-bye.